justice. And that's why Democrats and groups on the left, including many Hispanic groups, did not want him on the court. Manny did a great job of uncovering memos from the Democratic staff and the Judiciary Committee that explicitly spelled out from groups on the left, we don't want you to let Miguel Estrada through because we don't want him to be the first Hispanic justice. So it's only because they succeeded in blocking this extraordinary nominee, who, by the way, unlike Sonia Sotomayor, really did grow up in poverty, came to this country not speaking English from Honduras, or is it Ecuador? I always forget, Manny.
Honduras.
I don't know why I confused the two, but in any case, a true American success story, and again, they just absolutely ruthlessly tore him apart. It hurt his family. His wife shortly thereafter committed suicide. I mean, it was just a horrible personal experience. And so it's really ironic now when Democratic senators, groups on the left, and especially Hispanic groups, say that virtually any opposition to Sotomayor is racist. I mean, they conveniently forget what they did to Miguel Estrada. And he dropped out. Again, it was just too much of a strain on his family. So, of course, nothing that Republicans could even imagine doing to Sotomayor would match that. But there's a lot of Republicans who say, why fight? She's probably going to be confirmed. I don't think that's so much the Republican senators, but some of the people who purport to worry about the Republicans being too conservative. Certainly the media would love to see Republicans fold their tent here. But, we've already had a nominee this year who shows that even with only 40 Republican senators, you can stop Obama's nominees. I'm talking about Don Johnson, who was nominated to be the head of the Office of Legal Counsel at the Department of Justice. And because a few red state senators became convinced that she was just too radical, her nomination is going nowhere. I can't guarantee that she'll never be confirmed, but it certainly appears to be dead at this point. So you really don't need, it's not about a filibuster stopping a nominee. Republicans have never filibustered a judicial nominee and are not going to start doing it now. If Sotomayor or really any of these folks are going to be stopped, it's going to be stopped because red state Democrats, either publicly or privately, express their doubts, and then the nomination will just wither. Sort of a Harriet Mier scenario where doubts have been planted immediately about the nominee, as has happened with Sotomayor, and then instead of the nominee soothing those doubts, they just increase. And again, I'm not predicting that's what will happen with Sotomayor, but that's certainly the scenario under which she would be defeated. But, even if she's not defeated, and, there are even conservatives who say, well, we'll just get another liberal. So a lot of the goals that we're focusing on really are on having, and Manny has used this term, a great debate about the nominee. And the types of goals that I'm talking about accomplishing without stopping her confirmation is just make the cost high enough and the debate thorough enough that President Obama decides it's not worth it. It's especially because these types of debates drag him into the area of social issues, gay marriage, partial birth abortion, affirmative action, Second Amendment, places he clearly doesn't want to go. He's done everything possible to stay away from those issues. And so even having to deal with those is a cost to him, and it will make him moderate his future picks. Number two is I feel, a lot of observers feel, even folks on the left will say, grudgingly, well, this is the one, judges are the one issue that you guys went on, the one issue that works in your favor. I hope things aren't that bad with the Republican Party now that it's only one issue, but it's certainly an issue that, over the last decade has worked in Republicans' favor time and again when they've decided to focus on it. And it certainly puts red state Democrats in a difficult position. We can also, putting politics aside, I think this is an important teaching moment. It's the first time in most of our lifetimes that there will be a great debate or even a moderate debate over over a Democratic nominee to the Supreme Court. Breyer and Ginsburg, the only other two in our lifetimes, did not. There was no great debate. There was no great fight, and I'll get into that more in a little bit. But another thing that makes this, besides being the first of our lifetimes, it's also a great opportunity to have a great debate about the role of judges, because Obama and Sotomayor, as Tom talked about, have been so honest about what they're looking for. I mean, they both are on record as they don't use the word judicial activism, but they use every possible synonym for it, whether, taking empathy for certain groups into account, taking one's life experiences into account, one's ethnic heritage, one's perspectives. It all comes down to, I'm not just going to look at the law and the facts. I mean, that's basically the difference between the rule of law and judicial activism. Also on the point about whether Sotomayor can be stopped, one thing I learned from the Bush days is, it's not enough. Somebody may be opposed because they're too liberal or they're too conservative. But in the end of the day, if they're willing to stay in there and fight, that's not enough to stop them. It has to be ideology plus other problems. And in that sense, Sotomayor is very vulnerable. She's got a lot of problems, so much so that my initial reaction, in the first hour after I heard that she was nominated, was a little bit of shock and to say, he obviously, I didn't think he'd pick someone with this much baggage. He obviously was more influenced by her being a Hispanic woman than I would have guessed, and less influenced by factors that people had talked about, such as he's going to pick the greatest, mind on the short list, someone who can really stand up to Scalia. Sotomayor is a perfectly bright woman, but I don't think anyone thinks she's an intellectual heavyweight on the level of a Thomas or, a Breyer or even a Souter. So what are these factors beyond ideology that make her vulnerable? Well, let's start with her temperament. Whether you talk about, and liberal law professors like Jeff Rosen and Jonathan Turley have talked about this, whether you're talking about the people that she works with, the lawyers that appear before her, the ratings that she gets in various polls of lawyers. This is somebody who's not very pleasant on the bench. Someone who's difficult to get along with if you work with her. Somebody who people have described, frankly, as mean. I don't know how that squares with empathy, but we all know, again, empathy doesn't really mean empathy. It's a code word for favoring certain groups. So temperament is one problem. Statements she's made, perhaps her biggest problem, are racially divisive statements she's made, such as the fact that wise Latina women would most of the time make better decisions as a judge than a white man. I'm not sure where Latino men fit in, but assumedly somewhere in between. Now people, people have said, is she racist because of that? I'm not going to brand someone as racist that easily. I'm not going to play the game that the left plays, but it's certainly a racially divisive statement, and it gets into notions of racial superiority. And as Tom pointed out, she even talked about, there being intrinsic differences between Latinas and white men that account for the difference in how good a judge they are. So again, ask yourself if a white male nominee had said that, how you would feel.